Hello and welcome to the Basketball Addicts Podcast. And
Yeah.
today we have a good one, boys and girls. Today we are basically going to be having a really unique topic. You can't find this information or topic really anywhere else out there. So, something that we see a lot and complain a lot is about coaching decisions. They shouldn't have fired Monty Williams, for example, right?
hmm
He does X, Y, Z, right? And we're going to go ahead and give you guys a breakdown of every single team's head coach. We're going to give you the unfiltered opinion, and we're going to tell you and that compare that great coaching or poor coaching to the talent of the team, because sometimes the talent of the team carries a poor coach to a good winning record and a good playoff record, right? And
hmm
sometimes a great coach carries a terrible team to a really good regular season record and a good playoff record. It
True.
goes both ways. And sometimes the fan, you guys, sometimes it can be confusing. It can be tough to tell the difference. And that's what we're here for. This is what we're going to be
hmm
giving you guys today. Yeah. So you have anything to say before we start breaking these down?
Well, let's get right into it, man.
All right. So we're going to start off in the East. The first team we're going to be breaking down is the Atlanta Hawks. Now, everything that we're breaking down
Interesting.
today is 2K ratings. It's out of 100. Okay, so put that in perspective. So we rated Atlanta Hawks talent last year on their offense at a 90, and we rated their defensive talent at a 72. Now, Quinn Snyder
That
wasn't
makes
able to
sense.
coach a bunch of games, but from what we saw in Utah, gave his offense a 98 and his defense an 86.
Yeah.
So, definitely last year, defensively, they're not as talented. Best player defensively, probably DeJounte Murray at this point in time.
hmm
It's pretty weak and dim. But Quinn Snyder, when he was with Utah, he gets a 98 offensively because of what he did with Donovan Mitchell, the spacing, the 3-point shooting, even guys like Bodan Bogdanovic. Bodan Bogdanovic would have never hit that peak that he hit in Utah with anybody else.
Yeah.
The way he was able to use any offensive talent, the 3-point shooting, the identity, the spacing, the development of Donovan Mitchell, all masterclass. And he does get a 86 for defense because he built a system around Rudy Gobert. I mean, that team had Joe Ingles to defend. They
hmm
had, Bogdan Bogdanovic to defend. They had really terrible defenders most positions except Rudy. So the
Yeah.
whole scheme was to push it towards Rudy and push everything towards drop coverage, and that was Quinn Snyder's brilliance too. Of like, okay, we're going to try to hide our falls by pushing everything to Rudy, even though it can be exposed in the playoffs. Not his fault; the talent didn't match up. But yeah, that's the first one. So what do you think about that, Chris? The first one right off the bat.
Oh yeah. Without a doubt. I love Clint Snyder, especially I love
Yes,
him in
sir.
Utah. What he was able to do offensively with that team. I mean,
Yep.
even though you kind of had like a guy who could only defend, like that was his only strong suit, you still was able to
Yes.
maximize the guys there. Especially like I think Joe Ingles was like the best like spot up shooter in Utah than he was
He was really
anywhere
good.
else. Really
Yeah.
good there. Bogdan Bogdanovic, and then you also had Donovan Mitchell who was like
Yeah.
killing it. But the thing is, they just couldn't, get out of the West. So they had the
Yeah.
talent, I think, to an extent, but they just couldn't get out the West. It was too many
Yeah.
superpower teams, so we can't fault them for that. So offensively, I definitely agree with. And 86, I mean, you have guys on there who have slow feet, who can't really move well, who can't
Mm-hmm.
defend, like Joe Ingles, Bogdan Bogdanovic. You even got Donovan Mitchell to kind of buy into defending at least, you know what I mean, playing both sides of the ball, not just trying to score all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Rudy Gobert, who can't do anything else but, who can barely, like, he's not even a great defender, but he was still able to maximize that as well. So,
Yeah. I
I
mean,
would give him
he's
an
he's
86.
definitely a great interior defender. That's for sure. Yeah.
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 Just he defends very well. I mean, he defends good enough.
Yeah.
So, actually, very well. I'll
Okay.
give him that very well.
Yeah.
So, and then
Okay.
you have like your scheme where you push
Mm-hmm.
everything toward him and it kind of works. And that's the
Yeah.
kind of player that Rudy Gobert is, because he has to, like, kind of, he has to be in a system that does that, because
Mm-hmm.
otherwise he's kind of useless.
That's true. Yeah. I feel you.
Yeah,
Alrighty. You ready to get to the next one?
let's rock it.
This is going to be a big one. This is going to be a really big talking point. Next, we're going to talk about the Boston Celtics. The team talent for the Boston Celtics for last year, we rated a 99 on 2K for offense and 100 for defense. And we gave Joe Mazzulla the head coach of the Boston Celtics, a 65 for offense and a 75 for defense. So it's very clear that the Boston Celtics offensive talent is so special. Last year, Marcus Smart, Malcolm Brogdon, Jason Tatum, Jalen Brown. Then we got Marcus Smart, Derek White, Al Horford spacing wise. That a lot of
Mm-hmm.
offensive talent. And then when you go to the defense side, Robert Williams, Al Horford, Jason Tatum, Jalen Brown, Marcus Smart. Just probably the most defensively talented team last year was the Boston Celtics.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when we go to Joe Mazzulla, why does he get a 65 for offense? Well, because a lot of the things that Ime made work the year before, Joe didn't do. The very simple explanation is passing, right? The ball moved so much better with Boston, and it's so important for the ball to move well and for like people to play together and have off ball movement. It's because it takes attention away from Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown. It gives them another. Um, like a change up, an ability to hit those bounce passes and to be able to hit their teammates in stride and be it was a much more passing and movement based offense last year. And then on top of that, it's the Jason Tatum, Jalen Brown situation that this guy Joe Mazzulla couldn't do. Right, and he was very reliant on the talent to get them as far as they did. They relied
Mm-hmm.
on talent of their scoring and 3-point shooting, and it was extremely stagnant. I don't think I've seen a team in the past 4 years make it to the make it to a conference finals and be more stagnant than they were. I mean, it was
Mm-hmm.
they just stand in one spot. Al Horford doesn't move, right? The 3-point shooters, whenever they're off ball, they don't move, right? It's a very stagnant, predictable offense. And Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum attack you from similar areas. Everything's from the wing, right? Everything's from the wing or the baseline. And last year, Ime Udoka did a really great job of Jalen Brown's mostly going to attack from the top of the key, and Jason Tatum's going to talk from the wing, and we're going to give two different dimensions. And it allowed to give those two the spacing because they do have extremely similar skill. You do have to be creative to make both of them work. And Joe Mazzulla just didn't seem like he could figure that out. And,
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Brown's talent offensively suffered points per game in the playoffs because Joe Mazzulla couldn't figure it out, and they were just so predictable. And defensively, he does get a 75 because at least they compete. It's not like he's throwing out advanced schemes. It's not like they're throwing out zones. It's not like they're having these creative we got to shut down matchups. It's just like Joe Mazzulla can get them to a level of being able to compete and try hard on defense, but it's not like he's a strategic mind that's giving them the edge in a defensive
Yeah.
matchup. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
that the greatness of their team defensively last year was due to talent. So, Chris, what do you think of that?
Oh yeah, that's another one I agree with too. That's not one too far fetched. I believe that the Boston Celtics were a way better team, and I'm pretty sure everybody out there agrees as
Yeah,
well under Ime Udoka. And I believe that
yeah,
with his departure from the Boston Celtics, I would say that Joe Mazzulla just kind of inherited a team that was already pretty much set to win, so they couldn't
yeah,
do anything but win. So
yeah.
we really didn't quite see like if there was any differences in like scheme or anything like that, because this is the same team that Ime Udoka was able to coach into. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
now we got Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown defending at a high level. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We got them wanting to play at a certain level, but and playing winning basketball. Finally, we finally seeing like a young team
Mm-hmm.
really rising through the ranks in the East and really becoming something. Like they got really
Yeah.
close. You know what I mean? I think the year prior, to actually, yeah, they got really close. They lost in the finals. So it's like,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
um, they were. It was just a better a better team
Yeah.
under Ime, and Joe Mazzulla just kind of inherited. So I feel like he kind of didn't get a chance to, or maybe he did, in a way to like really kind of see if there was any creativity, because he kind of was just playing off of what was already there,
Yeah.
just trying to
True.
build upon it. But it was, in my opinion, it was pretty much perfect. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that creativity wise, because we probably didn't get a chance to see enough, and we seen a lot of like switching back to like the original, like how he couldn't figure out how to place Jason Tatum and Jalen
Mm-hmm.
Brown to kind of get him to work correctly. I would give him like low points for the creativity. Defensively, he was able to get them to compete, but they were already pretty much set defensively because they already knew
Sure.
their sets from the year prior. They already knew the offensive sets from the year prior, so
Mm-hmm.
it's not really much coaching that needed to be done besides like maybe a little bit of, how would I say, I mean, motivation. Really, that might have been the biggest
Mm-hmm.
problem this year. But other than that, yeah, I agree though.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. All right. The next team we're going to go ahead and kick it to is the Brooklyn Nets. So for last year, obviously, this is after the KD trade. Last year, offensively, we have them rated as a 77 talent wise. Defensively, we have them rated as an 84. Nick Claxton, Mikal Bridges, and make it really respectable. It's hard not to have a good defense when you have those two. So, and then Jock Vaughn, the head coach. Offensively, last year I gave him 87, and defensively I gave him 84. So Jock Vaughn really impressed me a lot last year offensively. The way that he was able to, after that trade for with for Mikal Bridges, and they got Cam Johnson, the way that he used Mikal Bridges, and because when you look at that roster, there wasn't a better, more veteran scorer on the team than Mikal, right? And the ways that he was able to use him and to get the most out of him in the high volume scoring role as the number one, because he was the number one talent, was so impressive. It was really impressive, and it also led to winning. And we saw Cam Thomas really become his best. And when if you watch a Nets game, there's movement, right? There's 3-point shooting, there's spacing, there's cuts, there's passing. It's a very team oriented scheme that doesn't neglect the basics, right?
Mm.
They do a really good job. Everybody's involved. It's a very impressive year from him. And defensively, he uses Nick Claxton extremely well. He doesn't force him to do something stupid like drop coverage, switchable scheme. You know what I mean? He definitely has gotten the most out of him, and I just really feel like he understands switching and he understands his identity and he gets everybody to play defense. And I feel like Jock Vaughn had a really good year. So I really was impressed. So what do you think about that ratings for the Brooklyn Nets?
Yeah. Considering he lost, KD, you know what I mean, to the
Mm-hmm.
Suns, and kind of got and kind of inherited a younger team.
Yeah.
Um, the fact that he was able to maximize Cam Thomas. I mean, Cam Thomas had a streak there going where he was dropping 40 points every night.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like, I think it was like a whole like maybe 3 or 4 games that he was just
Yeah.
continuously doing that. And I think that that's just amazing in itself to take such a young talent like that, kind of a
Mm-hmm.
raw talent, and be able to encourage him enough to take those shots
Yes.
to score a lot, to try to put the team on his back, and then get a player like Mikal Bridges from the Suns, who you know was a great player there as well. He helped. So I would say though he just being able to incorporate those kind of players there, that
Yeah.
I would give him definitely high marks in the offensive side. And Nick Claxton is a big upside, especially because he's one of those athletic kind of guys who can
Yes.
defend really well. So it's good that he was able to once again maximize the talent there. So yeah, this was a very impressive season. At first, I was thinking to myself like, I don't really know about this guy coaching wise, but then when I start seeing like how um, Cam Thomas was able to really like
Mm-hmm.
show us and kind of shut a lot of our mouths about the
Yeah.
team, so I was
Yeah.
like, okay,
It was
this might be
impressive.
interesting. It was definitely
Yeah.
impressive, definitely
Yeah.
definitely impressive.
Oh, all right. You ready to kick it to the next team?
Let's go.
All right. Next team up is the Charlotte Hornets. This is assuming LaMelo Ball is healthy. I gave their offense a 75 talent wise, and I gave their defense a 68. Head coaching wise, Steve Clifford. I gave those offensive schemes a 70. His defensive scheming is 68. This is a really young team. You don't really get to see a lot of the young players play because Steve Clifford's a dumbass. He doesn't allow the young players to play. That wasn't
Mm-hmm.
in the 2K ratings, or he have zeros for coaching. Anybody that his minutes are terrible, but when we talk about talent, LaMelo Ball is very talented offensively. Gordon Hayward is a good talent. Terry Rozier is a good talent. Most of the other guys are extremely raw, right? So it's hard to give them really high rating. And defensively, they don't really have anybody. They don't have anybody that defends except the center position, Mark Williams, right? It's not a lot of defensive talent. Steve Clifford, though, does get a 70 offensively. There's nothing special that he does. I feel like the biggest thing that upsets me is I feel like he wants to force LaMelo to play too much in the half court. I feel like letting him push the pace more is just such an like easy thing to do, right? It makes too much sense. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And like for example, in the 70s when Pat Riley took over the Los Angeles Lakers, believe it or not, Magic Johnson was playing a slow pace right before the Pat Riley took over, and then he was like, "Why would I not use Magic Johnson to play up and down?" Right, and I feel like it's so obvious, but Steve Clifford hasn't made that adjustment, so he gets a 70. He gets a 68 defensively. He doesn't really get anybody to try. I don't see the Hornets putting in all this effort defensively. You know what I mean? So that's why he doesn't get a lot of respect from me on that side of the basketball. It's not like he's doing anything special, but he also doesn't have a lot of talent. But again, they're not trying anything. They don't really put a ton of effort into it. So he gets a 68 for me. So what are you thinking about that, Chris?
Yeah, yeah, that's not. I agree with that one too. The On the offensive side of things, I think that you're absolutely right. I think that having a LaMelo Ball playing the half court does not make any sense whatsoever. That's the
Mm-hmm.
kind of guy you want pushing the pace. That's what all the other
Yes.
coaches he's ever had has figured that out, except for this guy for some reason. Steve Clifford has
Yeah.
not seemed to figure out that he is better in transition up and down the floor, where he
Yes.
can where he can really utilize his passing skills and really put on a show and really get everybody involved. He's that
Yeah.
kind of player. He's more of a up and down kind of player. Like you
Yeah.
can really like put the ball in his hand, he'll see the floor, he'll make some great passes, you know what I mean, and really start getting your offense flowing in a very
Yeah.
productive way. Um,
Agreed.
defensive,
Yeah.
Defensively, like you said, it's nothing to bat an eye at because he doesn't have anybody defensively, and he hasn't
True.
tried anything. There's no defensive sets. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't really see a lot of amazing stops. Like, ooh, wow, you're like, this guy is a great defender. Like, no, not
Yeah.
really. It's not getting anybody to try really. So I'll give him low marks for that. So I agree with that one. I think it was a
Okay.
68. But
Okay.
offensively, yeah, if he could just figure out that, hey, LaMelo Ball is better up and down, or maybe if they just
Mm-hmm.
have to get another coach in there, then and that guy figures it out, whatever it
Yeah.
may be. When that happens, then the Charlotte Hornets will truly take off offensively.
Yeah. Sadly, there's a section of NBA coaches that only believe in one scheme,
Yeah,
and they will forever always coach one scheme and not adaptable. So he seems like one of those guys.
it's
Alrighty,
possible.
you ready to kick it to the next team?
Let's go.
All right, this is another really good example of this. The Chicago Bulls, team talent wise, last year I got them 87 offensively. You got Zach Levine, DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic, who still can drop 16, 18 any night, right?
Yeah.
It's a pretty solid team. And defensively, I gave their talent a 78, right? They still had Alex Caruso last year. They had Pat Bev after deadline. And Patrick Williams is a really solid wing defender, right? And
Mm-hmm.
when Lonzo Ball does come back, that'll side of the ball will be more talented too. So Billy Donovan, head coach wise, I give his offense a 74, and I give his defense a 71. So I'm giving that offense a 74 because of that man hasn't been able to figure out DeMar DeRozan paired with Zach Levine since he got there. I'm so surprised that this man still has a job. Uh, he forces Zach Levine to run the DeMar DeRozan sets. That mid range stuff, the mid range ISO coming off ball screens. It's in an abuse of power. It's just so terrible. It makes zero sense to force Zach Levine to do those type of things. It's also not surprising that a college coach using a two guard to come off ball screens in the mid range because that's what college offensive systems have been doing for the past 35 years. And
Mm-hmm.
Billy Donovan is a college coach. He's from Florida, won 2 national championships, beat the Ohio State Buckeyes once, and defensively there is I feel like their defensive ability is carried about by the talent. I don't see any unique schemes. I see Nikola Vucevic being not really understanding what he's supposed to be doing. And on top of everything else, this is a real issue. Zach Levine and DeMar DeRozan are really gifted athletically, right? If the Billy Donovan was a good defensive coach, Zach Levine wouldn't suck at defense. Okay. And my clear example of this is Andrew Wiggins. Andrew Wiggins coming out of college, people were like, oh, we did these advanced science tests, and this Andrew Wiggins came up with a record high score for reaction time. He might be the next Michael Jordan defensively. And then he goes to Minnesota and he's like, that guy sucks defensively. And then he goes to Golden State and then he becomes Andrew Wiggins defensively. Like Zach Levine's that type of guy. DeMar DeRozan's that kind of guy, but especially Zach Levine, where he's ridiculously gifted athletically, but a coach that's not good defensively is not going to get the most out of him, and that's a good example of it. So because of all those reasons, I'm lowering him defensively as well. So what do you think about that, Chris?
Yeah, the Zach Levine, DeMar DeRozan thing really does baffle me because you have
It's
one
all
of
the
the,
talent.
I mean, one of the best, kind of shot creators from three. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like he was doing amazing things in Minnesota. You know what I mean from the 3 point line. And like just shot creating in sense and just going coming downhill. And you have him running mid range. You're not even playing to his strengths.
No, not at all.
DeMar DeRozan is the mid range assassin. He's the Jimmy Butler.
Yes.
You wouldn't make Jimmy Butler shoot threes. You know what I mean? You don't make Zach Levine shoot mid range shots. It's just that simple.
Exactly.
Like you understand what the talent is and what the personnel can do, and what the players are capable of, and that's how you know you're a good coach. That's why I agree with the low rating for offense because he doesn't understand his personnel clearly because he
No.
doesn't seem to understand that DeMar DeRozan shoot mid range shots, Zach Levine shoots threes. That's
Yeah.
how it goes. If you and you don't put Zach Levine in the same sets as you would DeMar DeRozan because it just
No.
doesn't work. He
Agreed.
doesn't shoot that close. He shoots from further away. He's a long
No.
range assassin. So defensively, he does have some defensive talent there. I will say that the Pat Bev, Alex Caruso combination, I like that.
No.
Um, so I mean, I can agree with the low marks because it's nothing too fancy, but he does have the talent. I mean, Patrick Williams as well. He does have the talent for there to be for it to be a great defensive scheme, just as
Yeah.
well as he has the talent for it to be a great offensive scheme as well. It's just kind of just how he's able to put it together.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Chicago Bulls for the last 3 years have had a team that's the talent to be a 6 seed in the East. Easy.
Mm,
It's so easy, but they've never reached it. Why? Coaching, right? But
coaching.
because of the talent of the team, they get to the play in, and people are like, oh, that's the Bulls. They're a pretty solid team, right?
Mm,
Billy Donovan's not that bad. Well, no. You have DeMar
yeah.
DeRozan, Zach Levine, and DeMar DeRozan before DeMar got to Chicago. Zach Levine was dropping 26, 27 a game,
Uh-huh.
right? So let's not act like there's some talent there. Okay.
Yeah.
Already, you ready to kick it to the next team?
Let's go.
All right, and this is something that we're both so excited to talk about. The Cleveland Cavaliers, boys and girls.
Mm,
Last year, I gave their offensive talent a 93, and I gave their defensive talent a 94. And I also gave the offensive coaching of JB Bickerstaff a 97. I gave the
yeah.
defensive coaching of JB Bickerstaff 100. That man can coach. All right.
Yeah.
So we talk about Cleveland Cavaliers team talent offensively. We got Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Karis LeVert, um, you know, Evan Mobley, shooters on the wing. That team has a lot of offensive talent. Defensively, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, Donovan Mitchell's improved defensively. Uh, Lamar Stevens was a really good defender that they traded the Miami Heat. They had talent, right? And they really did, but they reached a higher point than they would have because of the coaching of JB Bickerstaff. JB Bickerstaff gets a 97 from me offensively. I mean, that guy was able to make two high volume ball handling guards work together, and he made it look easy. He
Mm,
really made it look easy how well he fit Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell together, and it's a real tough issue because Donovan Mitchell isn't some normal scoring guard. Like he might be the best two guard passer in the NBA, maybe behind James Harden, top 3 two-guard passer in the NBA, a point guard level passer. Like, he's legitimately great, right? So that's part of his greatness, and to allow him to be at his greatest self, you got to have him as a passer too, and that would have in theory gotten in the way of Darius Garland, but he made it work so well. The spacing, the way that they ran pick and rolls, the way they ran actions, and it's just so impressive. Everybody was used 100% well, and he gets 100 for defensively because Karis LeVert never defended a day in his life before JB Bickerstaff was coaching him. We watched Karis LeVert. Like, whoa, Karis LeVert can defend. Now Donovan Mitchell, this is the best defender we've ever seen from him. Evan Mobley's taking ginormous steps forward. We get to see Darius Garland be the defensive defender he can be. Schematically, they're always great. They force everything to the rim. They defend the rim so special, right? They play to their strings, which is length. It's beautiful. It's beautiful what JB Bickerstaff did last year. The Cavs shouldn't
Yeah.
touch him. He should be at least have the head coaching job for the next 5 years, at least. Special. So, what do you think about that, Chris? I know you're happy to talk about it.
Oh, of course, of course, of course. Offensively, I love it. Got
Yeah.
Darius Garland. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He has big games. He's being used beautifully. Donovan Mitchell, you're able to play Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, two high volume
Yes.
guys on the court at the exact same time who kind of create from the same areas. It's just it's works so well.
Yes.
And then you're absolutely hit the nail on the head when you said that Donovan Mitchell, you're able to get the best out of him because he's a downhill kind of shot creating kind of guy who can also pass very well. He's like one of the best two-guard passers, so it also gets everybody else involved because he passes better.
Yeah.
Darius Garland is a great passer as well, and then
Yes.
you're look at where Mobley was to where Mobley is now. I mean,
Yeah.
if that's not coaching, I don't know what is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then, I mean, you have Karis LeVert, who is very consistently inconsistent, but you were able to still to maximize him when he gives you what he can give you.
Yes.
Like he's a solid 10 to 15 points, and that's good enough,
Mhm.
So, and defensively, like you said, he has Evan Mobley who can defend. Donovan Mitchell has really bought into the defensive scheme of things.
Yes.
I mean, Jarrett Allen and now Karis LeVert as well. Nobody could get Karis LeVert to defend. He was just like, okay, I'm going to score on this side of the ball, and we're going to leave everything else on the other side. And he's actually been defending pretty well, and you can get some quality points out of him too. So I definitely agree with the 2K rating here.
Yeah, it was no mistake that the Cleveland Cavaliers had a number 1 rated defense in the regular season for ever.
Right.
It was not a mistake. It's JB Bickerstaff being a phenomenal coach. I'm so glad he's in Cleveland. Yeah, we got a good one. We got lucky. Could you imagine if he was coaching with LeBron? I'm just gonna say that really quickly. We can't talk about it too long, but that may have been the best coach LeBron's ever had. I'm just gonna say it now. Eric Spoelstra was really young when he started coaching. I'm not Spo. Yeah, him.
Yeah.
All right, you ready to kick it to the next team?
Let's go.
All right, we're going to talk about the Dallas Mavericks here. Team talent-wise, offensively, they had 95 last year. Defensively, they had a 60. That's my 2K ready for their defense. That's post Dorian Finney-Smith trade. Okay, he wasn't on the team. And then Jason Kidd, I give him offensively 100 and defensively an 85. All right, boys and girls. People are prisoners moments. 2 years ago, the Dallas Mavericks won the Western Conference Finals. So let's not act like, this team isn't. This is crazy. So basically, why? I mean, obviously, offensively, talent-wise, Luka, Kyrie, the spacing, the three-point shooting, the small ball, and the depth of guys like Tim Hardaway that they bring off the bench, 95 makes sense. Defensively, they sucked. They didn't have anybody that could defend. Their best defender might have been JaVale McGee. JaVale McGee, and I can't think of another guy that's an average defender on the list, right? So it was really rough, talent-wise. But, reason why Jason Kidd gets 100 offensively is Luka. Like, the way he uses Luka was just so special. The pick and rolls, and he basically used Luca the way that he's never been used before, which is the post, right? The mid post action where Luca would catch the ball and he'd get the shot off, or maybe get a fadeaway or get a pass, and he'd look for double teams, and it was a really great use of Luca. It was a really great maximization of Luca, and it was so impressive. And even though people may not have talked about a lot. The fact that he made Kyrie and Luca work together, right? Like
Hmm.
he made those two work together offensively and schematically, and he's such a genius of taking advantage of defenses. You remember when he made Rudy Gobert unplayable, and that's how they moved
Yeah.
on in the playoffs, right? You know what I mean? Like he is a strategic genius, right? He is an X's and O's strategic genius. He really is. It's special. He's a special offensive mind, Jason Kidd, and he gets an 85 for defense because when Dorian Finney-Smith was there, they were pretty respectable. They had guys that could guard players, and they were trying the best to hide Luca. But even guys like Luca tried their best, right? Everybody on Dallas always tries their best defensively. You know what I mean? So I definitely feel like an X's and O's and trying to take away matchups and doubling players. Jason Kidd does make other teams think right defensively when they're on the floor. They may not have always had the talent, but Jason Kidd's a phenomenal coach, and they just didn't have the defensive talent last year. So what do you think about that, Chris?
Oh, yeah. So the Dallas Mavericks have way better offensive talent than they've had when it was just like, I think they had like a Yogi Ferrell at one point, and then they had
Yogi Ferrell,
Jalen
what an
Brunson. I
old
mean, Jalen
name.
Brunson is decent
Oh yeah,
offensively.
yeah,
He's really good.
yeah.
Um, but like the whole Kyrie Luka Doncic like makes them like a
Mm-hmm.
monster offensively, and
Yes.
to be able to make that work, that's like magic. It's one of those things where it's like this doesn't work, but then you understand that is a great passer and he can also
Yeah.
score, so he's really able to get people involved, and it works really well because then you just kind of just figure out who's taking the shot. You can pass it to Kyrie. Kyrie can knock it down, or he can take it to the hole. He
Yeah.
really like is able to really keep the ball in his hand, and
Sure.
it's the offense works with those two when they have a good coach.
Yeah.
Defensively, like you said, when they had Dorian Finney-Smith, everybody was really trying on defense and was able to keep
Yeah.
things together defensively. Now I would say that Kyrie doesn't really defend. Luca defends a little bit, so I mean I can understand the
Yeah.
60 because like you don't really have anybody who's defending, but
Nope.
Luca tries. I would give him that. If
Yeah.
maybe if
Definitely.
he can get Kyrie to try defensively, which I mean like he's really late in his career, so I don't think
Yeah.
anything's gonna change because the other
Yeah.
coaches got to try really defensively.
Yeah.
Um, I think that the 60 stays, unless
Okay.
they probably just need some quality role players. I mean, Christian Wood also adds to their offensive value
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
So I did forgot about that for a second.
Yeah. They
So
got the most of that Christian Wood too. That's a good
they
example.
did. What is he? 20 and 10. He's
Yeah,
like
he
a
was like a
walking double
20.
double.
Yeah, that was crazy. He definitely
Yeah,
wasn't doing that. He was basically coming off the bench in Houston. Like that
I
was
think
incredible.
so.
Yeah, the way he
Yeah,
used. That's another example of Jason Kidd's offensive genius, boys and girls. I really believe in it. All right, you ready to kick it to the next stand?
let's rock it.
Another team that Chris is going to be extremely happy to talk about is the Denver Nuggets. So last year,
Hmm.
offensively, I gave them talent wise a 100.
Yeah.
Defensively, I gave them talent of 94. Micah Malone, I gave him offensively a 95 and defensively a 95. This team won the NBA championship. Offensive talent has to be at 100 when you got Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic playing like Nikola Jokic did in the NBA Finals and the playoffs. So ridiculously spectacular, and the spacing, the shooting, it was really great to see. Defensively, they do have guys like Aaron Gordon, Bruce Brown, KCP, uh, and other guys off the bench. I can't think off the top of my head, but they had some pretty solid defensive talent. And Micah Malone isn't a all-time great coach, and he's going to be hundreds and something, but he's very, very, very good. He has a great
Hmm.
scheme around Nikola Jokic. He uses his passing to the up team to the degree. They have a lot of cutting and movement. They really use KCP and the off-ball screens, and they have another guy off the bench that I can't think of right now that they drafted from Kansas, who also comes off ball screens. And they really do a great job of just
Who
movement
Bruce
and
Brown, right?
no, it's somebody else. I can't think of
Okay.
his name. Christian Braun. Christian Braun.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so they really use everybody extremely well. Jamal Murray, even guys like Deshaun Bones Highland and Will Barton. This guy has a really good history of using these guys extremely well. And defensively,
Mm-hmm.
scheme wise, he does understand matchups well, right? He's not going to put Michael Porter Jr. on LeBron. He's going to put Aaron Gordon on LeBron, right? He understands
Mm-hmm.
matchups. He understands schemes. He understands how to try to take away what the opponent is doing. He's a smart, good coach. Like this guy is very good. I have a lot of respect for Michael Malone. So I'm thinking that there. So what do you think about that, Chris?
Yeah, I think that he did a great job of maximizing the talent that he had on the team.
Yeah,
I mean, you already have Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, and that has gotten you pretty far. You know what I mean
sure.
before, but to be able to maximize the role players very
Yeah,
well, you know, such as like the Aaron Gordon, who I think he was like he became like a spot up shooter, kind of a lob threat type of guy, and he was like thriving in that role.
yeah,
You also have Bruce Brown from the Clippers. He defensively the 3 and D kind of guy. He was really truly a asset to them winning the championship and a big
mm-hmm.
reason why they won the championship. And then to
Yeah,
also take a rookie, he literally was a rookie, Christian Braun,
yeah,
um, and maximize him to help them lead them to a championship. I mean, he was another asset in their championship run. So
yeah,
especially in the finals. So it was crazy.
yeah,
So I will give that to him offensively and defensively because he just maximizes the talent that he had
yeah,
defensively as well.
yeah.
Everybody was really like, really feeding into the defensive schemes. Like, okay, we can win this. He was able to motivate these guys to
Mm-hmm.
defend because defense is mostly motivation. And especially when you have some athletic guys like Aaron Gordon, then you can get the most out of them defensively as well.
Yeah,
So I agree. 95-95, and the team was just great this year. Go Nugs.
yeah. Alrighty, you ready to kick it to the next team?
Mm-hmm.
All right, from one team to another team that has a head coach we're going to want to talk about. So we're going to talk about the Detroit Pistons next. So the Detroit Pistons had, I would give them a 76 talent wise last year offensively and a 68 talent wise defensively. They don't really have much good guys that can really defend very well. They have some guys like Jalen Duran, who has some athletic gifts, but most of the talents on the offensive end with Cade and Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duran and Bogdan Bogdanovic. And their new head coach, because I didn't want to do Dwayne Casey because it makes no sense to do it. New head coach is Monty Williams. Monty
Mm-hmm.
Williams, we're gonna give a 98 to offense and defense. Monty Williams is a guy that is a classic example of this point of this podcast, right? Monty Williams is a guy that took the Suns from basically nothing, right? And made them into an NBA championship contender. And he always maximized the team. Everybody was always playing extremely well. They had a scheme and the 3-point shooting and the way they used Chris Paul and the way they had Chris Paul gel with DeAndre Ayton,
DeAndre
but
Ayton.
specifically last year, the genius that Monty Williams did is he got Devin Booker and KD to work together within a week and had a whole new system because Kevin Durant, that system they ran with Kevin Durant is completely different than the system they had with Jay Crowder and Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges.
Mm-hmm.
Completely different. Mikal Bridges Monty Williams did that in a week or two and had an advanced system where they're passing and the movement, and it was extremely special. I mean, the Clippers haven't been able to figure that out for 3 years, and Monty Williams did it in 2 weeks. Like that's why he's going to be a 98 offensively and defensively. I mean, he gets most of his players. He gets everybody to defend. Everybody's switchable other than DeAndre Ayton and drop coverage. The way he would use Jay Crowder, the way he got the most out of Mikal Bridges. Um, this guy's a phenomenal coach. He even gets the most out of Devin Booker defensively. This guy's special. Monty Williams has really fooled people to thinking that what the Suns were before Kevin Durant was a better team than what the talent used to be. So this is a great example of this podcast. What do you think about that, Chris?
Oh yeah, Monty Williams is definitely a great example of what this
Yes.
podcast is about because this specific episodes because like he really, really was able to maximize all of the
Yeah.
guys. To think about the fact that DeAndre Ayton is going to look totally different next year. Think about
Yeah.
this. Without Chris Paul was able to he was able to get Chris Paul involved,
Yeah.
make him a decent, I mean, a focal point of the offense as well because he's
Mm-hmm.
pushing the ball, and then for him to be able to work alongside DeAndre Ayton, you know what I mean, with that pick and roll that they were able to set up so that DeAndre
True.
Ayton looks like a way better player than what he truly is,
Yes.
and then you also get you get Kevin Durant with like a
Yeah.
couple games left, you know what I mean, and you
Uh huh.
somehow get it to work to the point where you almost
Yeah.
make it to the Western Conference Finals and then your
Yes.
team gives up on you. I don't see how that happens.
Me either.
Offensively, what can you say? This is the same coach that the Suns had, and they, were in the bubble, and Booker put on that great performance
Yeah.
in the play in, and then they didn't make the playoffs, and we're like,
Yeah.
what the heck? Like they went undefeated in the bubble,
Yeah.
pretty
Something
much,
crazy
and
like that. Yeah.
didn't make the playoffs, and it was something crazy like that. This is that coach that was able to maximize Booker. We've been seeing Booker just be like the scoring threat forever, but to be as much of an assassin as he was at that
Yeah.
point, and then from then on, I mean, that's nothing but coaching. And then you adding KD into that, you adding Jay Crowder. I mean, Jay Crowder before KD came, and Cam Johnson, getting Cam Johnson to get the most out of him. What is the Cameron Payne to get the most out of Cameron Payne?
Yeah.
It's
That's
like
right. They
that's a
revived his
big one.
career.
Yeah,
Yeah. I forgot
yeah,
about that.
yeah. Getting the most out of Cameron Payne to the point where he
Yeah.
feel like he can talk to LeBron because he's beat because their team has beaten him and he's dropped big
Yeah.
points against him. Like to be
Yeah.
able to do something like that, coaching offensively is
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
Then defensively, like you had, to get everybody to really buy into the defensive
Mm-hmm.
scheme, huge,
Yeah.
huge. So I
Agreed.
definitely agree.
Okay. You ready to kick it to the next guy?
Let's go.
All right, with next team up, we have the Golden State Warriors. Last year, offensive talent wise, I give them a 98. Jordan Poole plus the Warriors system, it's really special. Last year, defensively, I gave them a 95. Some guys are starting to slow down just a smidge. Steph is slowing down just a smidge. Clay, Draymond. But the reason why they're 95 and not 100 is because of Kevin Looney. He's a real weakness defending the rim. So it's a real issue strategically. So they didn't get 100. But the Golden State Warriors coach Steve Kerr, I gave him offense 100 and defense 100. This guy's been a genius for a very long time. Phenomenal use of all his players, great teams, great systems. Offensively, gets off ball movement, gets the movement with Clay and Steph, and the way they do everything. This is a guy that's in the Mount Rushmore of coaching. Right, and it's done so many
Mm-hmm.
special things for so long. Had not having him hundreds at both is kind of unreasonable. So, what do you think about the Golden State Warriors here?
Oh yeah, Golden State Warriors is very easy. Kerr is like phenomenal. We've seen what he was able to do creating this game where Curry was used in such a way
Yeah.
where he was always off ball and kind of just allowed Draymond to really kind of facilitate the offense, through his passing ability. Like to notice that Draymond has, a gift for passing and to be able
Mm-hmm.
to really, allow him to facilitate and get Curry, really all these wide open looks. Like Curry wouldn't be. I mean, well, Curry is a phenomenal shooter, the greatest shooter of all time, regardless. But Kerr and his offensive coaching, it had a big part in that as well. Because I mean, how would he get the looks otherwise? I mean, to staring a guy like Steph, who's shorter than everybody else, who plays with like a chip on his shoulder because he is is a little bit smaller. You know what I mean? To get him into like this thing, okay, look, I gotta run around 10 times and wait for the ball to come and then knock down the shot, and then also to get Clay to be able to be. I mean, like Clay is already automatic, but to get Clay to buy into the offense as well as so many other people such as Andrew Wiggins, Jordan Poole to come off the bench and be phenomenal and be a big reason why you won the championship 2 years ago. Amazing. So and then defensively, we already know what they're about. Defensively, I mean, you have Draymond, you have so many other guys who, especially Wiggins, who are long, athletic, and can really defend the ball very well and play both sides of the ball. So hundreds across the board.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Chris. So the next team up is going to be the Houston Rockets. So last year, offensively, gave them a 78 offensively. Jalen Green, KCP, Alperen Sengun, Eric Gordon, a lot of talent there. And then defensively, give them the 71. They do have some guys that have, like Jabari Smith Jr. He has high upside, but he hasn't quite reached it yet because he hasn't, thinking. right, his defensive mind and the X's and O's hasn't developed yet, but he does have talent. So 71 last year is pretty reasonable. They did have some decent length, but the star of the show here is Ime Udoka. We get to talk about
Hmm.
Ime. Ime, man, I gave him 100 for offense and 100 for defense. I mean, this man made Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum work offensively. Like, give that man his credit, right? Brad
Hmm.
Stevens, that same Brad Stevens that got the most out of Isaiah Thomas and Al Horford, that Brad Stevens couldn't make it work. Couldn't get Jason Tatum to Jalen Brown to work. And
Hmm.
we just saw Joe Mazzulla, right? Try to coach these two guys. And everybody's like, oh, we got to trade him. We got to trade him. Well, he got to the NBA finals with them, and they didn't have any issues offensively. And it was because of passing and the way that he used and spaced Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown, and the way that they used them to attack the floor in different spaces, right? And it was really special to watch. And he didn't even have Malcolm Brogdon on the team, right?
Hmm.
Think about that. If he would have had Malcolm Brogdon, they would have been back in the NBA Finals. I'm so sorry, Miami Heat, but you know what I mean? But this guy gets 100 offensively and defensively. Jason Tatum never defended a day before in his life, right? Before he walks in and he gets a scheme, and they're super switchable and they have an identity and they're just phenomenal. And every Marcus Smart is really great and Derek White's really great. And this just they just all defend at extremely high levels. They attack matchups. They Ime Adoka was the reason why KD broke down in the Eastern Conference playoffs because they were doubling him and forcing KD to become a playmaker. And, that's part of the reason why they lost the series. And it was just high turnovers and really. It was impressive what he did. He really broke him down. He's a strategic mind. Ime Udoka legitimately is an every 5 years talent, a half generational coaching talent. That's what Ime
Hmm.
is. It is special, and there has not been a better coach to enter the NBA in the last 5 years than Ime. I'm just gonna say that. Yeah. So, all right, that's what I gotta say about Ime and the Houston Rockets. What do you think?
Absolutely true. Ime Udoka is a generational talent, coaching
Yeah.
wise.
Yeah.
I mean, just what he was able to do. You mean you hit the nail on
Year
the head.
one.
With yeah, literally year one with Jason Tatum
Yes.
and Jalen Brown. What he was able to do with that, and just something simple as okay, we're just gonna have them on different sides. You know what I mean? Okay, he can have the wing, or he's gonna have the point. He's gonna have the top of the key, and we're gonna just make this work. And the fact that it worked and it turned into almost NBA championship in his first year with the Celtics, crazy. And then to get everybody to buy in defensively. I mean, Jason Tatum, like you said, never defended, in his life. So to
Yes.
get this guy to play high level defense and to beat a team that was supposed to win it all and to sweep them at that
Yeah.
and to force them to be broken up within the
Mm-hmm.
next year,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yes.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So definitely agree with those numbers.
All right. Sounds good. Sounds good. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and kick it to the next team. Next team up is the Indiana Pacers. So last year, talents wise, to give them an offensive talent of a 77. Tyrese Halliburton, Benedict Mathurin, Chris Duarte, Miles Turner spacing. They had some talent there. Defensive talent, I'd give it a 73. Tyrese Halliburton can't defend. And neither can Benedict Mathurin yet, Chris Duarte yet, but Miles Turner and Jalen Smith push the talent to this point, right? Because Miles Turner's a really special defender. Rick
Hmm.
Carlisle gets a 91 offensively for me. He used Tyrese Halliburton extremely well. He plays to the team's strengths. They shoot a ton of threes, but they have 3-point shooting talent. They don't have a ton of shot creation talent. Rick Carlisle really is a good offensive coach. This guy's been in the league for an extremely long time. And defensively, I'm going to give them an 86. I mean, this team definitely played better defense than the talent was on the floor last year. They always play together. They attack matchups. They understand the roles. They play tough. They play hard. They might not have the talent there, but they really do a really good job of coaching. Rick Carlisle, I mean, this guy's been coaching since forever. He coached, the Meta World Peace Indiana Pacers teams. I mean, then obviously the Dallas Mavericks with Dirk Nowitzki. This guy's been a really phenomenal coach. Is he as good as he used to be? No, but he's definitely still very, very, very good. So, and yeah, what do you think about that, Chris?
Yeah, I think he's still a good coach.
Yeah.
I think to be able to look at your personnel and decide like, hey, this should be a 3 point shooting team if nothing else, and
Yeah.
to start building a team around that, like getting pieces. I mean, like I know he's not with the team anymore, but Chris Duarte, Buddy
Yeah.
Hield, those are like 3 point specialists there. And then
Mm-hmm.
you have Miles Turner, who's a stretch big who can knock down threes. Tyrese Halliburton looks like an all star in this system. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's just nothing but attributed to the coaching that
Yeah.
coaching in the system and
True.
knowing your personnel. Defensively, I mean, yeah, I would say they can compete. They you still get the best out of everybody plays together and is able to defend really well. I mean, you
Yeah.
have long guys like Miles Turner. I mean, so I think it works.
Yeah. Alrighty. The next team on this list is somebody that we both really can't wait to talk about. Let's talk about those Los Angeles Clippers, Chris. All right, team talent
Ooh.
wise, give them a 99 offensively, a 99 defensively. This team's super talented. They're the deepest team in the league last year. Covington, Kawhi. I don't know why I thought of Robert Covington before Kawhi Leonard. Let's go in order here.
Yeah.
Kawhi, Paul George, Terrence Mann, Robert Covington, Norman Powell, Luke Kennard, Sean Bones Highland, Eric Gordon, Russell Westbrook, Marcus Morris, Eva Zubac, Madison Plumlee. Just so ridiculously deep. I'm probably still forgetting somebody because they're just that deep.
Yeah.
It's insane. Offensive talent and defensive talent. And, this is really where we're so excited to talk about this. Tyronn Lue gets a 60 offensively and an 84 defensively. All right, let's talk about why Tyronn Lue gets a 60 offensively. Oh, maybe the fact that he's been coaching this team for the past 3 years, and he's never once figured out how to use Paul George and Kawhi Leonard at the same time. Oh, oh, okay. And how about the fact that he's had his GM force point guards on him for the past 3 years on the roster, but he figures out new and creative ways to not use them. First things first, they traded Lou Williams and a second round draft pick for Rajon Rondo, who didn't touch the floor in the playoffs. All right, and then let's go to the next year. We got John Wall. He basically doesn't really get to touch the floor much, and they're basically going to use Perry Jackson. What was his name? Reggie Jackson as the starting point guard.
Reggie Jackson. Yeah.
Reggie Jackson starting over John Wall. And then they have Russell Westbrook, who they basically, while he's on the floor, touches the ball and initiates the offense about 20% of the time. Yeah. So the reason why that's a big issue is because the Clippers' weakness is passing, right? Kawhi Leonard is not a playmaker, but Tyronn Lue forces Kawhi Leonard to be a playmaker because Tyronn Lue doesn't understand offense. Okay, he forces Paul George, who maybe is a third playmaker, fourth playmaker. Sure, is he above average passer for the small forward position? Yes, right, but he's not a high volume playmaker. I want the ball in his hands 30% of the time when he's on the floor making decisions. And then I definitely don't want Kawhi Leonard, I can't pass looking ass, initiating the offense 60% of the time when he has the play on the floor. There's a difference, boys and girls. And the reason why it's an issue is because when they had those terrible passes, everybody catches it below their knees. Everybody's catching it terribly. They can't hit backdoor cuts. You don't have to worry about anybody getting cut and having a tough pass getting made when Kawhi Leonard has the ball. It doesn't scare you because he's not going to make the pass, right? It is just because defenses are so freaky long and athletic everywhere that if you don't have adequate passing, you're not going to win. I don't care how much talent you have. And Tyronn Lue doesn't understand that. And that's a real issue. And Russell Westbrook is a really good passer at this point in time in his career. Sure, younger OKC, no. But that man could have been the connecting piece to them going really far this year. But he wasn't able to be
Mm-hmm.
because Tyronn Lue didn't use him in the correct ways. And he forces Paul George to play like JJ Redick when Kawhi Leonard is on the floor. Like, I don't need to see him do 20 off-ball screens. Okay, let's just try to get them running, and because the issue is they'll have Kawhi Leonard on one baseline and Paul George at the other, and they'll just be like, okay, you guys, I'm just one of you is going to be off ball, and we're not going to scare you. They don't really have any unique actions. It's terrible. Now defensively, Tyronn Lue's a pretty solid coach. He understands switching. They have an identity. They play tough. They put in effort. He understands matchups. Like Tyronn Lue's a pretty solid defensive coach. Like I give him respect defensively, but his offense sucks. So they'll never go anywhere. So what do you think about that, Chris?
Oh yeah, for sure. Defensively, he's a solid coach, but
Hmm?
offensively, the fact that he still hasn't figured out the Paul George, Kawhi Leonard tandem
3 years.
in 3 years is crazy.
Yes.
I mean, just it doesn't make sense. They both attack from the same place. You know what I mean? Pretty decently. I mean, Paul George. I mean, Kawhi Leonard does go into the post a bit more.
Hmm.
Paul George is more of a cat. It can be can't you can make him a catch and shoot, but he can also he also kind of goes in the post. You're both like kind of wing
Hmm.
scorers. So I mean, if you look around, if you just maybe look at the offense and see how you can make it work, because they are definitely the team is more talented than what they have shown,
Yeah.
way more talented than what they have shown. On paper, these have should have been champions long time ago. This
True.
Clippers team should have won a championship a while ago.
Yeah.
When but they have that has quite honestly continued to elude them over and
Yeah.
over again, season after season, and it's coaching. It's bad coaching.
Yes.
Um, I know a lot of people aren't really big fans of Russ this late in his career. They're like, "Oh man, he was terrible with the Lakers, and he can't score like he used to." But where he really shines the most is his basketball IQ and his passing ability.
Yes.
That's exactly what they were missing. And you
Yes.
hit the nail on the head when you say when you mentioned Rajon Rondo, like the fact they had Rajon Rondo who just won a championship the year before, starting,
Mm.
and Frank Vogel figured that out, and he's not even an offensive guy,
No.
and that was just one thing that you wouldn't let happen, like the
Yeah.
fact that Rajon Rondo did not touch the floor, literally did not touch the floor, and he was your
Playoff
IQ
Rajon
guy.
Rondo.
Playoff Rajon Rondo did not touch the floor, and he was your IQ guy. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like he was the guy who was he's not gonna score a lot, but he can definitely play make
Yeah.
for you at a high level and really get players involved and take some of that mental strain off Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. I mean, same thing with Russell Westbrook. He may not be as athletic anymore, but if you put the ball in his hands and let him initiate the offense like you would like a Chris Paul-esque player,
Yeah.
let him just shine through his passing, then we can see a different Clippers team. It really is. They're only a guard away. Not even a guard
Yeah.
away. An
They
offensive
have the
scheme away.
guard away. Yeah, they have the guard. They've been had the guard.
Yeah, they have the guard. They've been had the guard. They're an
Yeah.
offensive scheme away from winning a championship at this
Yes.
point because they just
Yes.
have so much talent. They're so deep. They can throw so many different sets at you. We've seen that.
Yes.
Fine, we get it. But the big problem is that you have Kawhi Leonard playing chess, and he's not that type of player.
No.
You make Russ play chess for you, and you make
Yes.
Kawhi the Knight, Kawhi the King. You know what I mean? And let him
Yeah.
move around the board however he wants to. Make Paul George the King. Let them move around the board however they want to because they can do so much for you offensively
Yes.
and defensively as well.
Yeah. And this is why
So
the Clippers have never reached what they should. And this is a great
yeah,
example of this podcast. Alrighty, you ready to
mm-hmm.
kick it to the next team?
Let's go.
All right, from one Los Angeles team to another, we're going to talk about the Los Angeles Lakers. Last year, we would give their offensive talent 97, defensive talent 96. I mean, this team had good talent, the guard position, stuff like that. Darvin Ham wise, I'd give him offensive rating of 91 and a defensive 77. So, the reason why Darvin Ham gets a 91 offensively is in the playoffs, he did a really good job of LeBron's not producing as much. Let's adapt and have these guards to have more high volume roles. And we'll get the most out of Rui Hachimura. We'll get the most out of Austin Reeves. We'll get the most out of D'Lo. We'll get the most out of Dennis Schroeder. We'll get the most out of Lonnie Walker. Like he really did a really good job offensively. Yeah, and AD the way he was used offensively as well. It was really impressive how well they were able to hide LeBron not just being able to score as much in the playoffs. It was really great. Darvin Ham gets a ton of respect for me what he's done offensively. Defensively, though, the reason why he gets a 77 was because Anthony Davis was in freaking drop coverage for the whole year and against the Denver Nuggets. That man is a freak of nature, should be always switching, because he's able to guard 1 through 5. But if you don't use him like that, then you're not going to get the most out of Anthony Davis. And it's just such a ridiculous, obvious answer. Like, it's so obvious to have Anthony Davis being in a switching system as a center that putting him in drop coverage makes me question your sanity. But, he gets to 77 because it was coached well, right? They defended well. They understand how to run drop coverage well. They use Jaron Vanderbilt well. So it's not like he can't coach the drop scheme. It's just that the drop scheme didn't fit the talent. So, he's from Milwaukee, and that's why he runs that. So that's what I think about that. Chris, what do you think about the Lakers?
Oh yeah. I like the Lakers. I like offensively. That like definitely what they were able to do with Austin Reeves. Austin Reeves definitely had a coming out year last
Yeah.
year for
Yeah.
sure. And then LeBron, so you can't really say too much about that. But
True. Yeah.
D'Lo had. I mean, I think. Oh, wait, I saw something today. Austin Reeves had the highest true shooting percentage last year, 68.9%.
Interesting. Okay.
Right,
Yeah.
out of all of the guards in the NBA.
Interesting. Cool.
Um, and D'Lo had a great shooting year as well.
Mm-hmm.
Offensively, Darvin Ham is that guy.
Yeah.
Coaching wise, defensively, I will say that he knows how to use Anthony Davis to an extent, because I believe in the beginning of the playoffs, Anthony Davis was averaging like 3 blocks a
Oh
game or
no.
something
Yeah.
crazy like that. Like he was going bananas
Yeah.
defensively. Um, but I think that just being able to make those defensive adjustments, I think I can understand why we would give them a 77, because he wasn't able to adjust against like Nikola Jokic and,
Mm.
kind of later on in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So that's one time where you should probably bring him out of drop coverage because Jamal Murray's just going to
Mm-hmm.
carve him up inside.
Yeah.
So I can understand where it comes from, because
Okay.
the offensive side of things definitely agree with defensive side of things. I mean, early in the playoffs it was working, and he kind of just couldn't adjust.
Okay.
So yeah,
All right. All right. You ready to kick it to the last team we're going to talk about before part two, which is going to be coming out?
sugar.
Should be coming out soon to you guys. All right. So the
Yeah.
last team we're going to talk about today is the Memphis Grizzlies. Offensively, last year, give them a 96 talent wise. Defensively, give them an 88 talent wise. Ja Morant's a phenomenal offensive player. Dylan Brooks, pretty solid fourth, third scorer. Jaren Jackson Jr. They had a really good bench offensively. Guys like Tyus Jones, guys like Kyle Anderson. They had a good bench last year. So they get a really good grade offensively. Defensively, they get an 88 because even though Jaren Jackson Jr. is special, Dylan Brooks was a very good defender. Desmond Bain doesn't really defend. John Morant doesn't defend. Guys like Tyus Jones and Kyle Anderson don't defend. But when we talk about the coach, Taylor Jenkins, I'd give offensively a 93. He does a really good job with John Morant. Gives him a lot of spacing. He understands how to use him very well. He understands how to let him play downhill. He used Desmond Bain extremely well, and he used Jaron Jackson extremely well. He's a good offensive coach. I got to give Taylor Jenkins a lot of respect what he does offensively. Defensively, though, I give him a 78. Again, I've said it multiple times, and I'll say it again. John Morant might be the most defensively talented guard in the NBA, but he doesn't defend. All right, and that's Taylor Jenkins' fault. That's the only thing I can say. Look, it's defense is the side of the basketball that the coach touches more of what a player can be on the defensive side of the basketball, because so much of it comes down to coaching, intensity, requirements, teaching, understanding. It defensive side, offensive talent can overcome coaching, right? But defensive talent can't overcome bad coaching. And
Mm-hmm.
even though Jaron Jackson Jr. has been a phenomenal defender and he does a good job with him, that John Morant question mark makes me think that maybe Dylan Brooks and Jaron Jackson Jr. were just great defensive talents, and he doesn't really have to do much to develop them because John Morant is a negative defensively, but he in no universe should be. So, what do you think about that,
Mm-hmm.
Chris?
No, definitely. I was definitely like what he was able to do with Desmond Bain. I mean, Desmond Bain
Mm-hmm.
had a monster game, had monster games this
Yes.
season. And you found out that the pairing between him and John Morant was crazy and was kind of
Yeah.
pretty much like almost unstoppable, because they were
Yes.
just scoring from so many different angles. So to be
Mm-hmm.
able to really, I mean, it feels like John Morant every year takes a step forward, and
Yeah,
that's
sure.
big, especially from coaching wise, because
Yeah,
you know that it's been drilled in him to kind of just work by the coach and stuff like that, and
yeah,
kind of learn those offensive sets. So that's big. So I'll definitely give him high points for that.
yeah.
Defensively, I mean, he coached the defensive player of the year. But the John Moran question mark is a big thing. So you kind of do, I guess you can kind of be like, well, were they just natural? Was this just a carryover, kind of a spillover from their other coaches, and that's why they're so great defensively?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't seem like he's really coaching the defense per se. Like they kind of like, of course he's teaching the sets, but is he really maximizing the talent they
Mm-hmm.
have
True.
defensively?
Yeah.
So I don't think he is.
No, I agree, man. John Morant's way too freaky athletic. Way,
Yeah,
way too freaky athletic to not be. In no universe does that man not be a good defender.
exactly.
It's
Yeah, because he's way too
mind-boggling.
athletic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have anything else you want to say before we kick it?
Nope.
Okay. Well, guys, this is going to be part one of a part two series. We're going to be next week. We're going to have the next 16 teams that are on this list here. We're talking about head coaches giving us the similar information that we went over today. It's going to be really great because this point of this podcast is to really inform you guys with how good coaching really is in the NBA and how to really view coaches. And I think it'll really help cure a lot of people's an ability to see Monty Williams is a great coach. Like we'll explain to you why Monty is undeniably a great coach, right? And a guy like
Mm-hmm.
Budenholzer, it's just because of great talent, because of winning in a game, and because of winning, people have this perception of the talent on the team. But that's not always equal to the coaching. Sometimes the coach is terrible and
Yeah.
bringing it down to a certain level. Sometimes they're phenomenal and they're bringing it up to a certain level. And we're gonna bring that down for you guys. Yeah. Yeah.
Alrighty.
I mean,
Yeah. Just want to say thank you guys for listening, for tuning in every
Yeah.
week. We've got some great content coming for you. We'll be dropping this episode soon, and then the next one will be dropping within next week. So we'll get a part one, part two of this series. All right. You got anything you want to say before we close it out?
Nope. I got nothing to say, Chris.
All right. I'm Chris Muhammad,
I'm Jason Collins.
and we had the basketball. Peace.
Out.